EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a nightcap edition of Birds 365, a Wednesday evening, August 7th edition of the show, day number 10, practice number 10, I should say, is officially in the books. Eagles now are done their 4-day run, which was their Johnny Mack dubbed it the dog days of summer, so it's officially in the rearview mirror, now preparing for their first preseason game on Friday night. Johnny Mack, how you doing on this Wednesday night, my man?
Doing well. 4 days. The grind, the dog days of summer officially over. I don't think you're going to see, we don't have the new schedule yet after this game, but I don't think you're going to see 4 consecutive practices again the rest of the summer. So, busy stretch, at least for the modern era of the NFL.
How did it hold up today weather-wise? A hot one, cool one? I think it was pretty cool with the overcast.
Right? It was. Compared to yesterday, it was, but it's still very humid, obviously, with all the rain in the area. So saturated from that, the humidity was still pretty oppressive. But yeah, it's nice when it's not. It might be oppressive from a humidity standpoint, but at least it wasn't 90 plus degrees on top of it. So a little bit of a break.
Good stuff there, Johnny Mack. Let's get right to. We're going to get into practice. We're going to get into day number 10. We are going to break down everything that happened at training camp. We're going to talk about the press conferences. Jalen had a good press conference today. We're going to talk about the ESPN article that came out today from Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler. That's obviously created a lot of headlines today in the city of Philadelphia. We will start with that before we get into practice. Let's go here. Andrew Hernandez says, I didn't write it. Johnny Mack, everybody heard.
Yeah, evidently, a lot of people took that out of context. So, yeah, for people that don't know, Tim McManus wrote it. He and I are good friends, and what happened was, I was in the front row, and Jalen was kind of asking me questions about why is this coming up now?
Yeah,
and I told him there's an ESPN report, and he basically said, well, why write it now? And I said, I didn't write it. And it's not my position to say why Tim wrote it now, why he did it. That's not my business. So ultimately, Tim was in the back row because people were talking to other people in what's called the mix zone, and walked up and he said, I wrote it. And then it was fine, but everybody kind of took it out of context. So it went seamlessly, and then he talked about it and he explained it. But yeah, I felt bad because some people take it out of context.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was fun. I mean, I didn't think anything bad, negative of it. I just thought it was funny to hear, Johnny or Jalen Hurts call on you and look at you, and you're like, "Hey, man, it wasn't me. I don't know what you're looking at."
Well, that's why a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I'm throwing Tim." I mean, first of all, Tim's going to stand up. He's going to stand by his work, so it's not affecting
yeah, that's
him.
what I mean. It's not a knock on you to say you didn't write it. You didn't write it, so why would you get?
It's not my responsibility to say why did he write it now. That's Tim's, and he did. So I don't know why people are making a big deal out of it. I didn't write it, so I said I didn't write it. So I can't answer that question. Jalen was asking me a question. So anyway, that was the extent of it.
Well, good stuff. What did you think of? Let's get into the article and the context. And I thought there were some interesting things in there. Before we get into that, John, what do you have to say about the timing? I mean, you're a reporter, so maybe you can give more context than I can on this. But I thought the timing was a little odd. Wait, before I did, I got to thank James. James drops 100 memberships gifted. Look at this, James Carver, my man. Thank you, brother. We appreciate that so much. We had a bunch of members join today. Sorry to get in the middle of the show, but that is very nice of you to do that. Now 100 new people to support the channel. Thank you, James Carver, for doing that. That is great stuff. And thanks to all of our members who joined today. We appreciate each and every one of you. Carver, thank you very much, man. Back to it, though, Johnny Mack. What did you think of the article, the timing of it, when it came out, what it had to say? I kind of get the people who are like, look, we're 8 months out. Jalen Hurts even said it. He's like, we're 8 months after this thing. why now? What did you think of that?
Well, as far as the mechanics of, I mean, it was a very well sourced piece, and people don't just pick up the phone and give you stuff. So you can't just time when you have everything buttoned up, and you're going to publish an article. If we're about timing, you always know. For instance, we have this embargo session with Nick Sirianni every year that's embargoed to a certain date, and on that date before training camp, you'll see a bunch of Nick Sirianni stories. That's what the timing is. And in this particular instance, Jeremy Fowler and Tim wrote the piece. Um, you know, maybe they have Wink Martindale on the record. Maybe Wink just
Right.
answered it. There's a lot of other things they had to flesh out, and obviously it took a lot of time. And for those people saying, "Look, Tim's trying to figure out what happened last year, like we're all trying to figure out last year," and we talk about this on the show all the time. What happened? Nobody really knows because it was such a historic collapse. So for those people who are saying, "Oh, forget about it, forget it," that's not our job. It's your job to be a fan of the team. If you don't want to think about it, don't think about it. But that's not our job. Our job is not to protect the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not to sweep things under the rug. To me, uh, the most interesting part of the piece was the Wink Martindale stuff, which I
Yeah,
think is good and
I thought it
bad.
was cool.
Yeah, I think it's good and bad. I think it's good that it speaks to Jalen's work ethic that he reaches out to
Yeah.
people like that
Yep,
when there's
agreed.
an instance, and he's trying to get better. He's trying to work hard. I also think the Eagles coaches reached out to him as well. Um, and I also think, well, why do you need to reach out to Wink Martindale? Figure it out. So I thought there was some good and bad to that
You think
aspect.
that's a knock on Jalen, or more like the coaches? Like, does he not have the coaches in the room who can teach him? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. You know how I feel about. Boy, I got to tell you about this with Nick Sirianni. Again, the whole mentality of you go win 29 of 32 games, or whatever it is. I forget the exact number, but that's close. Um, and you do it by luck, or you do it by talent, or you do it, well, where was the talent when they won 1-6 or 1-7, whatever the hell it was at the end of the season? Same guys. I don't. The mentality to protect the players at all costs, and it's always the coach's fault when things go wrong, and when things go right, and you have the best stretch of Eagles history, and again, they're 91 years old. They got nothing to do with it. It's all the players. So that part bothers me. And by the way, I'm a the talent is responsible more than the coaching. I say that all the time. But that's good and bad. It's not just good, it's also bad. So when you talk about some of the stuff where going off the reservation in Seattle, which everybody now knows, and still to this day, is a big, part of the piece was about Nick Sirianni taking accountability. He was talking about accountability in the press conference today. Um, to this day, he's not taking accountability for that. AJ has, he has not. Um, and he's the quarterback. He's the guy who threw the football. So that's part. Um, and I thought and I just read about this on Sports Illustrated. I think there was a lot of sizzle in that piece, and I think everybody understandably is focused on the sizzle. And I think the steak was the last quote of Jalen's press conference today, and he said it before. This is the second time he said it, but for whatever reason, I don't know, people gloss over it. Talking about, and this was the disconnect between Jalen Hurts, Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni. The autonomy at the line of scrimmage that we've been talking about a lot this offseason, ever since Tom Brady talked about what good quarterback play is. On that viral video, we've talked about it a lot. This is what Jalen said. It's been a role I've been waiting on. I know I've had a well-respected guy, a Hall of Fame guy that's been doing it, Jason Kelce. Now we are forced to have an opportunity to do that, something I've been wanting. And I think that's how it's supposed to be. It's weird. And I don't even think Jason was mentioned in the article. If he was, I don't have it in front of me, but I don't think he was. And I'm not saying Jason Kelce is responsible, because he's not responsible. He's just doing he's doing his job at such an incredibly high level that is counterintuitive. You don't want to shift to a better sort of overall philosophy because he's so good at his job. And
yeah, I have a couple questions on this, but yeah, go ahead.
As long as he was going to continue to play, Jalen was not going to have the autonomy he wanted. And he has a great relationship with Jason Kelce. Jason Kelce has a great relationship with Jalen Hurts. But that is a silver lining to one of the greatest centers of all time walking away, because now the quarterback has everything he wants. Now he has everything he wants. And Kellen Moore said he's got the trump card. And now it's his responsibility. And he said today, and I'll say it again, he said how it's supposed to be.
Okay, so there's a lot to take from that. Is that well,
it's not a knock at Jason Kelce.
Well, because that's where I was going. It's either that or it's, let me ask this up front. When Carson Wentz was the quarterback in Philadelphia with Jason Kelce, did Jason Kelce pick up the blitzes for Carson Wentz?
Yes.
Okay, so is it an organizational thing, or is it a Jason Kelce thing where they had a Hall of Fame center and they trusted him so much that it didn't matter who was quarterback, they were going to keep that in his hands?
Yes, the latter. Doesn't matter who the quarterback.
So I don't think that's a bad thing then. I don't think that's a knock on Jason, and maybe Jalen.
Not a knock on. It has nothing to do with Jason Kelce. Nothing.
Okay, so
there's a counterintuitive notion that, he's so good at his job description. You're taking away something from somebody else in a very delicate ecosystem that is the NFL. And in this particular instance, you're taking away from a quarterback who craved it and wanted it and was unhappy he didn't have it. And he wasn't upset at Jason Kelce. He knew it. He said it. As long as he's here, it's not going to happen. And that's exactly how it played out. Now that he's gone, he will have that opportunity. And now it's all on him. He's got everything he wanted.
Yeah.
And now it's up to Jalen Hurts.
I'll tell you what, a big takeaway here is Jalen Hurts has more power right now than he's ever had, obviously, here in Philly. You could argue he's got more power than Nick Sirianni right now.
Well, you pay a quarterback $250 million. You're always going to lean towards the quarterback, but that's not unique.
I just think he mentions Lurie a lot. Do you take anything from that? Well, wait, before we get into that, do you think was Jalen saying that and he was okay with Kelce doing it because he's acclimated to the NFL as a quarterback? It's his first couple of years. You're learning new offenses, all sorts of things. Maybe he was all right at the time with Jason Kelce calling out the protections, but he also understood eventually, I'm going to have to do that as a quarterback. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, he knew eventually he's going to have to do it when Jason retired. He knew he wasn't going to do it before Jason retired. Doesn't mean he didn't crave it, because he's obviously very competitive, and he wants to do things in a certain way. And I think part of it was when Brian Johnson got the job, he thought there would be at least more autonomy than there was before, but that turned out not to be the case. And I think that was the disconnect. And from Nick's standpoint, it was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which is probably a good way to go about things. But then when it did break, they weren't able to fix it. But I mean, when they were winning, when they were on that stretch, I mean, I think it's insanity. I think it's revisionist history for people to come and say, oh, this was a bad offense. I mean, what does that say about every other coach in this league? There's certain things. There was one quote, there was one phrase, or I don't know if it were a direct quote. I'll try to find it, about Nick's X's and O chops, and for being around the NFL as long as I have, I see things like that, and I say to myself, that's somebody who's jealous of that success. I mean, if he's got no X's and O chops, like people like to say, what does that say about you as a coach who can't beat him? What does that say about you? Now you can go the fan route and say, well, it's just because of the talent. And they had significant talent. Don't get me wrong. You can never win at that level in this league without significant talent. But they had significant talent at the end of last season. Why didn't they trump it? Why did it all of a sudden stop? If the head coach has no play calling skills or no ability to build an offense and all this, and he won 29 of 32 games in this league, which is built on parity, what does that say about all the other coaches?
It's very true. What do you think of the, you said you brought up the word revisionist history, and the one thing I was just debating with this on the National Football Show with Dan Silio. He's like, he hired Brian Johnson and didn't let him do his job. And I'm like, would you? I mean, look, I get it. You want Brian Johnson to be a guy, but you're not just going to give up your offense that just went to the Super Bowl for a guy that's never called a play in the NFL. What's your take on the relationship with Brian Johnson? Many are saying he was scapegoated, after this article, and a lot of people have believed that. Maybe Jalen believes that.
Scapegoated for the entire, since the day he got fired.
Yeah, but do you think he was scapegoated,
yes, of course he was. That's the nature of the NFL. When you do, and that's every city. That's not just Philadelphia.
Well, then what do you think about the relationship of not let the where Nick is over, has his claws on everything, and he won't let Brian call what he wants to call, and all of those things? What do you think about that then?
Well, he's the head coach. So, in at the way things were set up, he did the same thing with Shane Steichen. I mean, people believe what they want to believe. Nick, was in charge of the game plan. Essentially, you're ordering off Nick's menu. So he had the ability to order off Nick's menu and call plays off Nick's menu.
Right.
Same as Shane. And that's what Nick said would happen as long as he was here, and shifted gears because he had to. It was the same setup under Shane Steichen. Now, did he trust Shane a little bit more because he had a prior relationship? He had a longer relationship. Yes. But the assumption that, but from your description of let him do his job, that was his job coming in. He was going to be the play caller because Nick wanted to be CEO coach. And he knew that he was going to be calling plays off Nick's menu. That's what he was hired to do.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't think I can't really knock Nick for that, John. I can't.
No, no. Again, he was having. There's the revisionist history. He just made the Super Bowl.
I know, right? You're not just going to give up your offense to a guy that's never been a coordinator in the league.
It's that part of it is absurdly revisionist. Like, why? Why would you come off that historic season and say, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to take a step back and let Brian Johnson." You didn't even let Shane Steichen do that. So, yeah, that part of it's kind of goofy for the people that say that, and that wasn't in the article we're talking about. But so here from a team source, described a lack of full respect for Sirianni's X's and O's chops. So essentially, it was more about you know, if you want to say Jalen's perspective and that disconnect. But, if you, and then there was another team source who said basically that Jalen didn't give Nick enough credit. So, that might be the loggerheads of that relationship. And, that tends to happen when you have success. And everybody's got an ego in this league, and everybody's, if you go back to Howie and Jeffrey with Doug Peterson, they thought they were a large part, and they were a large part of winning the Super Bowl, but maybe they thought they were too large a part and unwilling to give, somebody else some credit. And that happens a lot in this league, including Philadelphia. But I don't know. Guys got the best winning percentage in Eagles history. 3 for 3 in the playoffs. Made the Super Bowl. He's not an idiot. A lot of people think he is.
No doubt about it. I want to welcome everybody in tonight. Just 25 minutes into the show here. We'll be live with you till 8 p.m. Still going to recap day 10 of training camp practice. Talking now about that ESPN article from Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler that came out today. You heard Jalen talk about it in the press conference. You saw Johnny Mack say, I didn't write it. There's some good stuff there. Getting Johnny Mack's take on that now. Interested to hear, what more John makes of it, just because I'm not a reporter, so I view it in a different lens as John. So, I've given my take on it today. I'm looking to get more of John's. I want to welcome everybody in. A lot of good people in here. Appreciate all of you guys. Make sure you guys smash that like button. And if you're in here, already 56 likes on the show tonight. You guys are killing it. James Carver dished out 100 memberships. So, James, thank you for doing that. Super chat, Jason A-Team says we need to stop it. J-Mac t-shirt, Big Z. I love that. Maybe we'll get a stop it t-shirt for J-Mac. So thank you all. And then thank you to all.
I got to get I didn't write it t-shirt, evidently.
Yeah, we might have to make that too, Johnny Mac. I'm going to thank all of our members who joined today. Wayne Miller, Spin Bad, SMD Eagles, James Jones, Senor, Big Marshall, Q Ball, Dullahan, Sean Mims, Matt the Angler, WCB JJ, Crawley's in there, Eduardo Reza, and Prince Swayze. So a lot of good things happening on the channel today. You guys have been great all day long. Can't thank you enough for supporting the channel. It goes a long way. So we thank you for that very much. John, you said there was a lot of sizzle. You talked about the steak already. What was the sizzle to you? I'm curious to hear just some of the small things that you took.
The sizzle's the disconnect stuff. They don't hate each other. I mean, and at the end, for the people that read the entire thing, because it's a lengthy piece, it's very fair, and you point out the two riding together in Dom's golf cart before this came out, high-fiving on the sidelines. They're not punching each other in the face. So the fact that people butt heads when you're losing in the NFL is not exactly uncommon. But that's the kind of sizzle that people are going to focus on. And that's what I'm talking about there. So, to me, as I said, the Wink Martindale stuff was very interesting, and from a good and bad perspective. The good being that not only Jalen, but again, the coaches reached out to Wink as well, trying to take advantage of a weird situation when he moved on so quickly from the Giants, and they have tremendous respect for him. And he did a good job with the blitz and confusing the Eagles offense and trying to pick his mind and say, what went on in this type of instance. And, Wink saying he's been coaching for 40 years and nobody's ever done that before.
Yeah.
That tells you kind of the I think all that is tremendous. But on the other hand, I say to myself, that's the job of the coaches. And, you guys should have prepared. For all the people that criticize, there's plenty of reasons to criticize the Eagles coaching staff last year. There's plenty. And I always say the people that wanted Nick fired shouldn't even talked about the offense. They should have talked about demoting Sean Desai, which was the disastrous decision. There's plenty of stuff. And the biggest part is, look, your job as a coaching staff, the head coach, particularly the quarterback coach, the offensive coordinator, when you talk about that blitz, Jalen was not effective against the blitz late last season, to put it mildly.
You think there was any level of a lack of trust between him and Jason Kelce with those blitzes? Or was it just that he wasn't developed enough in his reading of defenses to be able to pick up on them? Like why did he struggle?
He wasn't prepared to handle it. And that's the coach's job. That's the teaching, the execution. The hot routes that everybody talks about, they're in the offense, but you got to use them. How many times have I said on the show, you don't call the hot routes? There's no such thing as calling a hot route.
You have said that quite a bit, Johnny Mac.
That is something done on the field in real time, because the quarterback sees a blitz and says, all right, we're going to go to this route. And, if you want to criticize the coaching staff, you say they didn't have them prepared well enough to handle that kind of stuff. But so, and that's a legitimate criticism of the coaching staff. And, when you have the expectations of the Eagles, and for everybody wants to tie this up in a little bow, and everybody does, because they want the one reason the Eagles collapse. You can't. There's a million. And I try to bring as much context to this show as anywhere that covers this team. And I try to do it on a daily basis. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. But there's a million different reasons. But if you do want that little bow, I would say they just collapse under the expectations. That is, you've heard it numerous times, and you've heard it again in this article. You've heard it on the show. You've heard it way back when they were 10-1, the most miserable 10-1 team ever. When they were 10-1, I think the quote in the story was, it was like somebody killed their dog. They were miserable, winning every week, because they weren't winning with style points, and they weren't winning. And I remember asking Nick about that. Are you guys having fun? And he said, oh yeah, we're having fun. No, they weren't. They were just miserable because of the expectations. And then San Francisco and Dallas punched them in the mouth back to back. And that was it.
Blew their motor. Blew the motor out. They never got to, never able to fix it. Yeah. Anyway, I want to move on from last year. I just wanted to get your take on that article. A lot of people are talking about. I know people are like, "Oh, stop talking about last year." Look, you got to talk about it. All right. I mean, it comes out. Everybody's talking about it. We are going to talk about it here on Birds 365. If everybody's talking about it, that means you definitely got to talk about it. We talk about things that others do not talk about. But we will also talk about that stuff. We want to make you guys informed on everything that's going on. John, before we get to our first commercial break, and we'll come back and break down day number 10, practice number 10, I should say, of practice, which was today before their preseason game on Friday. Any other takeaways that are worth noting from the article other than it's time to shut the book on 23 and gear up for 24 for a Super Bowl run?
Shut the book on 2023 because fans want us to shut the book on 2023. If somebody else, uncovers something that's going to be reported, and that's just the way it is.
I get it, but
it's not our job.
It's a little shady, I think, the timing of it. I get it. I mean, he's got not every source comes to at the same time and everything.
There's no timing, shady timing on August 7th.
That's just my opinion. I just think it's all odd that 10 days into camp, everything's going good. And then you have a bombshell article talking about the same crap we've been talking about since January.
No, that is absolutely bullshit.
All right,
Number one, I've known Tim for 20 freaking years.
Yeah, he's a great reporter. I know he is.
That ain't the way he does his job. It ain't about setting a bomb on a team having a good training camp. We're the ones telling you they're having a good training camp. And Tim's been firmly in that group as well. We're telling you that because the offense, mainly, not the defense, the offense is having a good training camp. Not because we're trying to prop up the team or trying to take down the team. If you're timing something, and people do this, and you'll see it in politics all the time, you do it in start of training camp, start of the regular season. You don't do it on August 7th, on the 4th day of 4 consecutive practices, when everybody's dragging their ass around. It had nothing to do with putting a bombshell on a team that was having a good training camp. That, I'm sorry, as somebody who's done this for 25 years, there's a lot of misunderstanding of what our jobs are. That is absolute. I can say that 150%. That is absolute bullshit. Well, nobody who covers this team cares. The real people who cover this team, not the cheerleaders, the real people who cover this team do not care about positive or negative. They don't. I don't care what people think. And I'm talking about McManus, and I'm talking about McLean, and I'm talking about Berman, and there's a bunch of other people I'll forget. But those guys, they don't care. They don't care about propping this team up. And they don't care about ripping them down. They care about telling you the stories of this particular team. And Tim is in that.
Look, I get the job of the reporter. I never criticized that. I just said it is, weird. It comes out now. I get it, though. I understand all the sides of it. I said that on the show earlier today. They have a different job than I do, than fans do, than everybody else does. I understand. I'm just saying.
But I think a lot of people think that way. Like Tim woke up today and said, you know what? The Eagles are doing too well. I'm going to drop a bomb on them. Bullshit. I mean, that's insanity.
Yeah, I mean, John, I've been talking to you about the Eagles for 4 years. I understand the role of the reporter and the objective.
But no, you just said they dropped it. That's
I didn't say that. I said it looks odd that it comes out right now. I never said that he did that. I'm saying it looks odd to the people. Who do reporters, John, write articles for? I'm just saying, to the people that consume it, the perception is there. I'm not saying Tim did that.
Yeah, but the perception is there because people that don't understand the job push that perception. The perception that we should somehow protect this team, or we should somehow
we should protect the team at all.
Positive.
I don't think
and only talk about things like that. That's why that kind of stuff exists. And that's why it's a pet peeve of mine, because instead of doing that, and I'm looking at WIP and 97.5, instead of doing that, and criticizing people like Tim or anybody else because they put out an article that certain people think is negative. And by the way, it's not even negative. It's just a bunch of source material. Yeah, I don't get it, and it bothers me. And I know I'm fighting a losing battle because people don't.
I get what you're saying. I understand why you stand up for your position. I completely do. I'm just telling you how I think the people who make and I don't think it's because I'm sitting here saying this. I think it's just the blanket assumption of people who read it and are like, oh, of course, the media again. I'm not saying Tim is wrong.
That's all I'm saying. I'm saying the people that think that way are fucking clueless. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That's
they
fine.
are absolutely 1,000% clueless. That think that we're sitting there. Again, I always make the jokes that we're sitting there having our meetings, having our weekly meeting. Oh, things are going too well. Things are going too well for the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to take them down a notch or two. We don't care.
I get
Win,
it.
loss, draw. Give me a good story. I don't care if they win. I don't care if they lose. I hope people are healthy. And there's, people I like who work for that organization, and I root for them from a personal level, and I hope they're successful. But as far as the team, yeah, I don't care. And if that offends people, and I know it offends people greatly, I don't care if they win. I don't care. I had a bunch of people today because I was making fun of the Simmons stuff, saying, "Oh, you don't want Justin Simmons in Philadelphia." I don't even know Justin Simmons. I don't care who they bring in, who they don't bring in. What I can't say, it doesn't make any sense. So it's a waste of time to talk about. That's what I don't like. It's got nothing to do with Justin Simmons as a player.
I get it. I understand your point of view. I'm just saying perception is what it is. You can argue why it's created or not, but perception becomes reality. And we're talking about a football team that cares about the perception of their team. No doubt about it. Their PR department cares a lot about the perception. And
that's their job to care about the perception.
Just like it's your job to be an objective reporter, and it's our job to consume the content of the team or the fans. That's what they do. I'm just telling you that that's the perception. I'm not arguing that you're wrong. I'm just telling you that is how people are going to view it.
And I'm trying to educate that perception is a bunch of bullshit. That's all I'm trying to do.
Good. I'm happy that you gave that education. I would agree with you. I don't see it. I mean, I think that we could have talked about this all summer, but it comes out now, whatever, when the resources come. I get it. I get what you're saying. I understand that there's a different role. But anyway, let's move on. Any closing thoughts that you want to get out on the article and everything that came out today?
Well, yeah, I mean, the assumption that you can, all right, it's Wednesday, August 7th, make sure my source gets back to me. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So I'll just leave it at that.
I get it. Understood. Let's move on. We're going to get to our first commercial break. Coming back, we'll talk about day 10 of training camp practice. We'll talk about what happened down there at day 10. Think about get into the offense, the defense. Jalen Hurts, he broke the training camp record for those who care about the Elliott Shore Parks stat numbers. So Jalen Hurts did that today on his 26th birthday. Happy birthday to quarterback Jalen Hurts. Let's get to our first commercial break. Thanks, everybody, for being here. A lot of new members today, by the way. Prince says, become a JAKIB member. Remember, we're giving away up to 20 Saquon jerseys this season. Every time he goes over 125 yards. So if you're a channel member, you must be a channel member to win. If you're a channel member, you'll be eligible to win a Saquon jersey. So consider joining today and supporting the channel. Thank you. We appreciate that. Let's get to our commercial break. On the other side, we'll talk about day 10 of training camp. Back in a minute.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a nightcap edition of Birds 365, Wednesday, August 7th here. 29 days, I believe, 29 days away. I think it's 29 from the Eagles opening day, or it's 30. I guess it would be 30. Yeah, August 7th. 30 days away from the Eagles opening game, 29 days away from the NFL opener with the Chiefs and the Ravens. So moving right along, everybody, we are almost back to football season. Sydney family becomes a member. Sydney, thank you very much. You are officially entered for the Saquon Barkley jersey giveaway. Thank you for becoming a member and supporting the channel. We appreciate that. John, before we're going to go offense, defense, we're going to get into it all. But overall, what did you see down there? Day 10 of training camp practice officially in the books, the last of the 4-day run. What did you see down there at the NovaCare Complex today?
Another laid back day. No pads on today. So after back-to-back days with full pads, they scaled back from that point. 10. By the way, it's Jalen Hurts' birthday today.
Yeah, so
happy birthday.
Yeah, good stuff.
To Jalen, who is 26 today. And it's amazing. People forget he's still pretty young.
Yeah.
And he's been playing for a long time. And we'll see if he can take that next step with the autonomy. I would say that 10 practices and it's official. Still, we're in double digits. Still no interceptions for Jalen Hurts in training camp, which is pretty amazing. Because again, you can go on X or Twitter or social media, whatever kind of social media you want to go and watch camps around the league, and you'll see news coming out of quarterbacks throwing interceptions. It's rare that you go this deep into a camp without throwing an interception. So, that was a big problem with Jalen last year, was the uptick, which was very uncharacteristic with the turnovers. And I argue that he was a very similar player in his near MVP year as last year if you took away the turnovers. And I still believe that. So it's a good sign that he's, more ball security conscious. And, but with all the good in training camp, there's the bad, because you're practicing against each other for the most part, unless it's a joint practice, and the Eagles will have one of those next week against New England. But they're practicing against the Eagles defense, and the counterpoint to that is the defense ain't taking it away. So that part of it's not good. So it's that give and take. But Jalen's had a very good training camp, and that's positive.
That's a great thing. What have you seen from him though? Some people were like, "Hey, well, is it just because he's throwing the ball underneath?" Like, have you still seen? Is he still pushing that ball down the field? I mean, you've heard a lot of touchdowns and stuff, so I think he's having a great camp overall. But is he still putting the ball, into tough, tight windows? Is he still, kind of being aggressive, I guess you could say, with the football in practice, just kind of protecting it better? Or what have you seen in that regard?
Well, there has been more underneath stuff. And that was, by the way, I should have brought that up with the piece we were talking about. That was an interesting part that, Jalen thought that there should have been more underneath throws, which is counterintuitive to everything I've seen on the field. Because if anything, he seemed to me as somebody who fell in love with the explosive play now. And again, you go back to the Seattle game. You can't blame that one on Nick Sirianni because we now know what happened. And that was a perfect example of him trying to push the football down the field when he shouldn't have. So hopefully learn from that. And Kellen Moore has a history of getting, obviously, the backs involved, the tight ends involved. So we'll see how it shakes out. And part of it is the defense as well, because Vic generally starts with two high safeties, or he has to this point. So those guys are playing, very deep, which is not susceptible to pushing the football down the field. And that's his whole philosophy, limit explosive plays. So it's a combination of all that kind of stuff. But bottom line is, doesn't matter what quarterback you are in what offense against what defense, if you're in training camp for 10 consecutive practices and you're a starting quarterback and you don't throw an interception, I'll go on X right now and find a bunch of guys throwing interceptions all over the league. It's not a negative.
That's definitely a great thing to hear from Jalen Hurts, who continues to light up camp, John. He is having a great camp. I think it's really positive because, first off, it's training camp. So we're not going to, once the games start, you're not going to worry as much about what he did in camp, obviously. You're going to worry about what he's doing in the games. But I do think where we are, we can only analyze where we are. I can't analyze the games yet. It's very positive, especially coming off the OTA, right? After the comments on 95% new, he struggled on the field in OTAs. I think it's a positive progression that he's picking up Kellen Moore's offense more, understanding it more, maybe making it his own, like he mentioned back in OTAs, and is really just taking strides forward in the offense, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and especially again coming off last year when he had, and that was one of the positives I pretty consistently said. Look, Jalen has typically been very secure with the football. So last year I thought was going to be an outlier, and I still think it's going to be an outlier. Dak Prescott went through the same thing. He had 1 year where he just, and sometimes it is that turnover to luck. Coaches hate that word, but that's what it is.
Yeah, no, it's a part of the NFL. Whether coaches love it or hate it doesn't matter. It's a part of the NFL for sure.
There's a randomness to it, and it wasn't going his way last year, and I think it'll regress back to the mean for him as it regressed back to the mean with Dak Prescott. They're both very good at taking care of the football, and I think he'll be good taking care of the football this year.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. What else on the offense? We'll go into the defense. I think there's a lot to talk about in the defense. I know it wasn't too much in the practice day, a light practice. Not too much came of it. But what else did you see on offense today? As I heard Johnny Wilson got some reps at the 1, and then the right guard.
Yeah, Johnny had a drop though.
Johnny had a drop.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Johnny had a drop, so he's taking. And Ias didn't have a drop. This might have been the first day. Nick Sirianni went off on a one of his tangents about my question about Anias. You know, how do you do that with a young player? Basically, I said, because it hasn't looked good with Anias, and we've been honest about that. And you know, how do you approach that as a coach? Basically, I was asking Nick Sirianni, because you don't want to kill the kid, you don't want to destroy all the competence. He's not obviously playing with competence, so you want to build him back up. And he went on this dissertation. I don't think the transcript has come out yet, and it's usually out. And I think the reason why is because they got to go. It just came out, and my God, you should see the length of this answer. And certain guys were pissed at me because he took up all his time, but he just went on and on and on and on about explaining, you know, how you handle things like that. It's amazing how long that answer was. But so, you know, Johnny Wilson has been, it's almost predictable, you know, when everybody says Mr. Novacare, it's Carlton Agudosi, it's Bebby Moma, it's a big receiver or a big tight end in the case of Tyree Jackson. Seemed to be Johnny Wilson. I don't think he's going to get significant playing time. I haven't deterred from that. And if he does, it's probably not a good thing because that means somebody got hurt and you don't have other options. But I do think he's a good prospect, and I think he's proven that, you know, he's a good developmental player. I think part of those first team reps are, you know, Paris Campbell's out right now. John
Nothing
Ross.
serious on Paris Campbell, right? What was it, a groin? I think I saw.
Yeah, he's got a groin, but that can be, you know,
Yeah,
that can
they
be
can
lingering.
linger. Yeah, they can linger.
It's not a good thing for a receiver.
Yeah, no.
We'll see how long he's out. But that, you know, you need somebody to take first team reps. He's going to get plenty of time in the preseason. He's going to play a lot. So is Anias. And, you know, maybe Anias got going today. Maybe he didn't drop the football. He didn't drop. He was back on kickoff returns with the third group. He didn't drop any. So maybe, you know, we see a little bit more of a competition between those guys when the preseason starts. But yeah, I'm not on the Johnny Wilson's going to be AJ Brown's backup train. I don't believe that's going to be the case.
Not yet, at least. And boy, that's a big guy to put him in the slot too. So we'll see what his role is. You know, do you think they are going to end up in the wide receiver 3 by committee room where they kind of go that route? Is that what it looks like to you, or do you think one guy will emerge and they'll kind of stick with him?
I think if one guy emerges, it's going to be Paris. And again, the groin's not going to help. I don't know if that's, you know, his history says he's not going to be a great player. But you don't have to be a great player.
No,
you know,
you don't.
can he be Olamide Zaccheaus or Quez Watkins or Julio Jones last year? Not Julio Jones in his prime, obviously. Sure, he could be that, but I think he's the guy. And if they can't go, I think that'll be a position they look outside the organization as we get down to cut down day. Maybe an August trade that Howie's semi-famous for. That's a position that they might look to upgrade.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing at that position. John, how about that right guard and really the whole offensive line? You know, there's been a lot of movement at there recently. What did you see from the offensive line today, day 10 of camp?
Mekhi Becton was right guard. Tyler Steen is back full, and he was the second team left guard. Nick was asked about it, and he refused to say that Mekhi has taken the lead. It certainly seems like Mekhi has taken the lead.
They had Steen on the depth chart, but like you said, the communications department does the depth chart. It's not the coaches. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Mekhi seems to have taken the lead. Doesn't mean he's won the job. And I think preseason will play into that because They're both going to get reps in the preseason, even if Lane and Landon and Jordan don't play, and I would throw Cam into that category as well. Even if they don't play, Makai's going to play and Tyler's going to play, so that'll factor into those guys as well.
Yeah, good stuff. Do you think would it be fair to say that decision at right guard's 100% Jeff Stoutland? It is, right?
Yeah, they're going to lean on. Yeah, they're not going to tell Jeff Stoutland. If Jeff Stoutland thinks Mekhi Becton should be the starter, yeah, nobody's going to overrule that.
Yeah, nobody's going to overrule him on that. So good stuff. I want to thank Madness, who just became a member. Madness, thank you, man. One of our best viewers. You're always here, and we appreciate you very much for becoming a member on the channel. Ton of people becoming a member. James Carver, John, just checked in. And he checked in after gifting 100 memberships. So, James, thank you for doing that, brother. We can't thank you enough. Double whammy on a 50 spot. But James checked in right as you're talking about Ainias Smith, John, and he was fired up. He's like, I'm the Ainias Smith fan club president. It's like he was summoned at the perfect time to hear you talk about Ainias Smith. So good stuff there. Anything
I
else,
would read you Nick's answer about Ainias Smith, but we need 2 more hours to get through it.
Can you summarize it? Is there is there any way you can give James Carver a little bit of love? He dropped us 100 members. We got to give him some Ainias Smith love today.
Well, Nick talked about the work, and you hear this constantly. The worst coaching point in the world, and I hate this coaching point. This is Nick talking, not me. And I hate hearing this, is catch the ball. And he said, well, I tried to. Get off the block. I tried to. How? That's what they talk about. That's how they try to correct players that are having issues. So with Ainias, he was like, hey, you dropped the ball that was low, or your hands a little bit apart. Did you try to turn up the field? Let me show you. Here's the proper fundamental. You put on the tape of AJ or DeMonte. Here's the proper fundamental to get off a block. And now we see how many unbelievable players on our team. It went on and on and on. Okay, Ainias, watch AJ. How his pinkies are together when the ball is below his waist. Watch AJ when he goes to the ground, and instead of going to the ground and letting the ball pop up, he gets to his back so it doesn't pop out.
Boy, Nick Sirianni, he can ramble, Johnny, man.
Oh yeah, it's all those little.
Get him on Birds 365.
But he is right.
Talk for the whole 2 hours.
And he said, if I hear one of my coaches say catch it, I'm upset, because it's about how you do it. And you'll see anybody. You hear people all the time say catch the football. Well, that's not helping somebody. So that's what he's trying to say.
Good stuff there from Johnny Mack. We're going to get more into the offense here a little bit. I want to remind everybody, by the way, which I just did, but I want to add, remember, James Jones. So he became a member today, and he is a Commander fan. What I'm going to do for anybody that's not a fan of the team that wins a Saquon jersey, if you're a member, James Jones is one. Niners All Damn Day is one. They're going to get to pick a jersey from their team. So it'll be a Niners jersey, or in James Jones' case, a Commanders jersey. And then I'm going to also give away another Saquon jersey. So if they win, they will not take away a jersey from an Eagles fan. So you should basically be rooting for them to win, because it will take one person out of the sweepstakes, and you'll still get another Eagles jersey. So they're not going to get a Saquon jersey, because they're not going to use it. They might burn it. They might make a social video burning it. But we appreciate all of our members. So thanks, everybody, for today. It's been a really good day on the channel, and we can't thank you all enough. John, anything else on offense today that stood out? I kind of heard some talk about Grant Calcaterra. Did he have a good day?
Yeah, Grant, big seam routes down the middle of the field. He's had a strong training camp as a whole. That now it's not even a competition. I mean, he's the backup tight end. He's the tight end too. And I didn't see that unfolding. I would have put CJ Uzomah as the favorite heading into camp, and I did. And I think CJ will still make the team as the third tight end and a guy who can block, but Grant has, locked down that role. And that's not even a competition anymore. And he was good today, but he's been pretty consistently good every day. And if anything, I'm a little surprised how much 12 personnel they've used so much with 2 tight ends on the field. So, Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni seem to really like Grant Calcaterra, and he's got
Yeah,
that new mustache. He's feeling himself.
he is feeling himself. I kind of like it with Grant C. One other question here on the tight ends. Well, we'll talk about Dallas Goedert a little bit too. I want to ask about him, but John, before camp started, if you remember, we did like our 53 projection type of thing where we talked about who will make the team. We were both thinking CJ Uzomah would be that tight end too, just kind of based on the pedigree. He's been an NFL player. He's been around for a little bit. Is it more of a case of Calcaterra stepping up, or has CJ Uzomah just not looked good in practice? What have you seen from Uzomah through camp so far?
I think it's more Grant stepping up, but yeah, I mean, CJ hasn't been impressive. And there was some concern because he was hurt with the Jets last year, and he's over 30, and you never know, as I mentioned yesterday, with the big name trap. It's like, guys don't stay in a stasis. Because he was great going to the Super Bowl with Cincinnati doesn't mean he's the same player he was. CJ Uzomah, not Gardner Johnson, but he hasn't been great, but they don't have anybody else. Alberto, yeah, boy, that guy looks like a tight end, but he doesn't do much.
Nothing from Alberto. Joey checks in on the chat. What's going on with Alberto? Nothing from Alberto. He was like the couple years ago, Johnny Wilson. Everybody was all jacked up for Alberto.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's 6'5", he's 260, runs a 4.49. He had a little stretch in Denver where people thought he could be something, and he just never took off. And the Eagles traded not much. They traded late round draft positioning for him. But even that, Howie's given him every opportunity. It wouldn't shock me if they kept him over CJ because CJ's older and
right.
It's not going to be
30. He's over 30, isn't he?
Yeah, he's over 30. But Albert, despite his size, is not a great blocker. He's more of a receiver. I would think having Grant Calcaterra, you'd want more of a blocker.
Are you looking for a
that
special
third
teams
tight
role
end
too with the third tight end? Or not really?
Not really. I mean, those guys tend to be a little bit from a blocking standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know. The new kickoff, I feel like, is going to be you're going to have a little bit of a different look. Maybe one of those bigger dudes would be more applicable,
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows how everybody's going to handle kickoffs, but the Eagles did show, basically you have to line up 5 yards apart and two guys get to stand a little bit behind when you're blocking for the kickoff. And that was Patrick Johnson and Grant Calcaterra has been the first team guys who do that. So that's going to be their role. Albert was used as like the third group doing that. So maybe that gives him a little bit of a leg up on CJ Uzomah, but yeah, I don't think that's going to be a massive difference.
Good stuff. Good breakdown on the tight ends. James Carver with a super chat. Thank you, James. Thanks, J-Mac. That's good enough. At least you did that. So he's got a chance line. I think he's talking about Ananias Smith there. James, loving hearing that Ananias Smith might have a chance. James, you got to go check.
You know what? All you got to do is make some plays in the preseason. If you watch Eli Ricks last year in practice, you would say there's no way that guy is going to make this football team. And then he goes to Baltimore and he has that pick six, and the Eagles are worrying about him getting claimed on waivers. So he's been bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but if he shows up on game day, they're not going to cut a 5th round pick.
No way. I don't even think they're going to cut him if he doesn't make a play. I think they're going to keep him. Maybe.
Yeah, they didn't cut Shelton Gibson.
Yeah, right.
He didn't last long, but I never said he's not going to make the team. I kind of, as a 5th round pick, I kind of default to they're going to stick him on the end of the roster.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I've said pretty consistently. I don't like wasting 2 roster spots. I don't like it. Well, on Anaya Smith and Johnny Wilson.
Yeah, I don't love it either. I mean, I see what you're saying. You kind of, like you said, you've said many times, you pigeonhole yourself a little bit.
Yeah. So, I don't think he's going to get cut, to be honest. Now, if he drops a bunch more, like when I bring up Ricks, he didn't play well in practice, but then he played well in the games. He's got to play well in the games. If he keeps dropping the football like he's dropping the football, he's in trouble. But I assume at some point that's going to stop.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I want to welcome Bruce Banner, our newest member. Bruce, thanks for joining, man. We appreciate it. A lot of good new members today. I can't thank all of you guys enough for supporting the channel. It goes a long way, and it's much appreciated. Again, thank you, Bruce. We appreciate that. John, before we move into the defense a little bit, anything else that stood out to you on offense today? Dallas Goedert, I think he caught the lone touchdown of the day, if I'm not mistaken. What else stood out on offense today?
Yeah, that Dallas did have a nice touchdown, but boy, that should have been a sack. There were a bunch of plays today they didn't blow dead, and you're like, Covey made a nice.
It's kind of tough because it's subjective, right? Like,
and you never know when it's Jalen, he might get out of it, but you kind of know with the other guys, they're not getting out of it. And they weren't blowing stuff dead today, so. Britton Covey made a nice catch. You mentioned Calcaterra, Dallas. But some of them should have been sacks. Slay had a nice PBU on Joseph Nada on a go route, but that's like a day off for Slay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe, but that's like a day off for Slay. And he's pretty amazing for he's 33. And I know you brought that up in the past, Zander, that you're a little bit worried about Slay. And I don't blame you from that perspective. There aren't too many good 33-year-old cornerbacks in the NFL. But, Patrick Peterson has played pretty well as he ages. Slay's in that category. He's amazing for being 33. And he's still talking about he can beat Isaiah Rodgers in a race, which I don't think is the case, but he believes it.
I don't think that's the case either. I saw that. Yeah, heard him say that.
And John Ross, he doesn't bring up. He's smart enough not to bring up John Ross. Probably knows deep down he can't beat John Ross, but yeah, he's an amazing player. It's every once in a while. I say it about Brandon all the time. Brandon got a sack today that they actually called. If there's any way you can be underrated and be that productive over the years, I think Slay's in that category. He's having a good camp. The other guys have been,
kind of a drop off on the corners since that first couple of days. Everybody was a little bit jacked up about him. They've kind of.
Yeah, I think everybody's jacked up about him, but I think there's going to be some, non-jacked up about them when they're playing for real. Especially, I look at that first game in Green Bay and all their receivers, and we'll see. I mean, Jordan Love is probably got paid a little bit too quickly. I'm very high on him as a quarterback, but he's still got some learning to do. And maybe Vic can fool him a little bit. We'll see how that works week 1. But I do think you're going to see some growing pains. And, it was Mitchell in the slot again, so it looks like they're trending in that direction. I want Cooper Sheen back because I want Mitchell on the outside. That's what I want. And we'll see how the Eagles handle it when he does come back.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing with Mitchell. Was he in the slot again today? Lined up at the slot?
Yeah.
In the first
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into the defense coming up next. Let's get our next commercial break. We're going to go talk defense when we get back. Good breakdown there on the offense. We talked about the article for those just checking in. A lot of new members in here. We appreciate all of you guys, super chats, members, likes. I think the likes are doing pretty good tonight. 91. And thank you all for the likes. Prince is keeping track. Prince, thank you, man. We appreciate you doing that. So, guys, stay tuned. Birds 365 will be right back. We're going to dive into the defense what went on at day 10 with the defense today, and then we'll do a little preview of the upcoming preseason game on Friday. So stay tuned on Birds 365. We'll be right back.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday nightcap edition of Birds 365, a night show. By the way, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming for the rest of the week. So tomorrow morning, just 13 hours away, we'll be live on Birds 365 for our Thursday morning edition. Two good guests planned. Josh Davis is in hour 2 for those YouTube fans of his channel, host of the Philly Special Show channel. Does a very good job on YouTube, so we'll talk to him tomorrow. And then Jeff Kerr, who's been down at practice the last week. So we'll talk to him in the morning. So a good show planned Thursday, and then a Friday show in the morning as well, obviously, with the preseason game at night. So good stuff there. John, before we go defense, JM brought it up, a good point. We're doing the running back jersey giveaway. We didn't even talk about the running backs. Anything from Saquon Barkley today and the running back room? What did you see from them before we get into the defense?
Not a big running back practice. It wasn't the day before when they had the pads on. They did a ton of running, and Saquon looked very good, explosive. Kenny Gainwell looked good as well. Today they didn't have the pads on. It was more of a off-season feel, so it was more of a passing practice. And that kind of thing. So the running backs weren't as involved today, but in the in the portions of previous practices, when they do have the pads on, they're running the football. Yeah, I think Saquon's shown that he's going to be at least better than DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders when it comes to north-south running. I'm not going to sit here and say he's Earl Campbell and that's his wheelhouse, but he's bigger, he's stronger, so I think that's going to help the Eagles in a 4-minute offense. I've gone on record, and I'm saying it again, the most underrated player on the Philadelphia Eagles is Kenny Gainwell. Saquon said a similar thing, by the way. He's having a great camp. So you have a solid 1-2 punch in the backfield, and Kellen Moore's got everything he needs basically on this offense.
Yeah, good stuff. Good breakdown on the running back. Surprise! A lot of people were surprised, John, when you said that the other day, to hear you say that Gainwell is the most underrated player on the team. But yeah, I do think maybe you think he has a bigger role this year. I mean, a lot of people have been disappointed with him in the past. I think he could have a bigger role here. I don't know. It seems like he's gonna with the what I've been hearing from camp. But what do you think of that? What do you think, Kenny?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously, they want Saquon to be a 3-down back, so it'll be, but you also want to recognize that it's a 17-game season. He's got some mileage on him. He's got some injury history to him. So, maybe you want at least a pitch count early, and that will open up some touches for Kenny Gainwell. And if he's effective with those, then I think, he'll earn more. I think it'll be that type of situation. I'm trying to bring up what Saquon said about Kenny. He said, Kenny, he's a really good football player. He's an all-around back. He can do it. He can do it all. There's not any weakness to his game. He can pass protect. He can catch the ball. He's really good in space. I mean, anybody was at the open practice at Lincoln Financial Field, he just destroyed Nakobe Dean. I mean, and to the point where Vic had to address it at practice after and admit, yeah, he didn't have his best day. And he was talking about Nakobe over at the link. And it was because of Kenny Gainwell. I mean, he was the guy you could not keep up with. And for everybody talking about Saquon in the passing game, I think Saquon's going to be a bigger impact in the running game. I still think Kenny's the best receiving back on the Philadelphia Eagles.
John, is Jalen about to make us both eat our words this year, talking about the running backs in the passing game? He said it today. I was surprised to hear him, but I've been saying all along, I'm like, we don't have a quarterback that passes to the running backs. Why do we want guys that can catch? He said it today. He's like, I wish there was more of that. Is he going to make me more eat my words on him throwing the ball to the running back?
Yeah, well, I'll believe it. I've said it. I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, I think a lot of people, because the Eagles got Saquon Barkley, the assumption was that it was going to tick up. But they've had very good receiving backs because the Eagles like backs who catch the football. They seem to not like the north-south guys. And they haven't used them. They've had backs who can catch the football. DeAndre Swift is tremendous catching the football. They didn't use him. Kenny,
was that on Jalen or was it on the coaches? Kind of what he said makes it seem like it was on the coaches, but
I mean, well, we get back to the disconnect where we started.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But we talk about what was the most surprising thing about that article to me was the fact that there was a claim that Jalen wanted to throw the ball more over the middle, and Jalen wanted to throw the ball underneath a little bit more. And that's where I said, all right. I said, I don't know about that source, because again, there's a history to Nick Sirianni before he came to Philadelphia. He was not averse to doing those things in Indianapolis. So, when you hear that, it's sort of like, is that guy trying to protect the quarterback? And you start thinking about that because, when he was in Indianapolis, they threw it to the backs all the time.
Yeah, right.
So take that one for what it's worth.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing. I guess we'll have to wait and see till the games are played on that one. John, good breakdown there on the running backs. JM, thanks for bringing that to my attention. Sorry I didn't get to them in the offense segment. Appreciate you, JM, in the chat. Let's go defense now. Johnny Mack, what'd you see from the defense today? Let's start with the defensive line. You know who I'm going to ask about, but I'll let you get to him. Start with the defensive line. What'd you see today, Johnny Mack, from the defensive line?
Yeah, still waiting for that Bryce up play. I think Bryce might have a few nightmares about Lane Johnson. But he's not the first. And he won't be the last to have those kind of nightmares. So I thought the pass rush was pretty good today as a whole, and they weren't blowing plays dead and sacks. A lot of blitzing today for a second consecutive day. I think they're trying to figure out linebacker. We got to get them. Today was a crazy day at linebacker. They were mixing and matching like nobody's business. I mean, it was every time I looked up, it was a different group, which tells you a couple things. One, they have not figured it out, and two, everybody's in the mix, even Jeremiah Trotter Jr. So that's going to be interesting, and I think the preseason is going to tell a lot about that. But the Eagles front, specifically Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, have been very good. And generally, when they have really good days, the defense shows up a little bit. And when they're just having blah days, they get handled pretty well. So that's going to be the strength of this defense, no doubt about it.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. We're going to continue to look for that Bryce off watch. He said he's going to be seeing Lane in his sleep. I think a lot of edge rushers see Lane Johnson in their nightmares. So
yeah,
Bryce
and I've said that ever since I brought it up on the show. I'm like, Hassan Reddick wasn't a good training camp player either from the standpoint of standing out. And I think that's because he was mainly on Lane's side. And then when he got to the season and he didn't have to play Lane every week, he did pretty well. So I wouldn't close the door on Bryce up just yet.
No, I'm definitely not closing the door. Definitely not. I think some people are concerned, maybe he's not going to be able to even come close to replicating what Hassan Reddick is. And do you think, look, I'm not trying to criticize Bryce Chef. We have to see him on the field in a game. But here's what I'll say. If he doesn't, live up to what we need him to be, even if it's just pass rushing, forget the 3-down back player or 3-down player, how much trouble is the Eagles pass rush going to be in?
Yeah, it's going to be in significant trouble. I mean,
yeah, they're kind of relying on him big time, right?
Yeah, unless Nolan Smith takes a massive leap in year 2. I mean, it doesn't matter. Yeah, if Nolan Smith turns into Hassan Reddick and Bryce Huff doesn't, I mean, you can complain about the contract, but they already paid it. Who cares? As long as very similar to Andre Dillard, as a first-round pick and Jordan Mailata as a 7th-round pick. Ultimately, who cares? If you bind the player, who cares? Unless it's your money, and I don't think it's anybody's money. It's not my money. It's not your money. I don't think it's the listener's money. So if they bind the player, I don't think you should care. But one of them's got to do it. And if one of them can't do it, yeah, then you're in deep trouble.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. I want to welcome David Kern, welcome member of the channel now. David, thanks for being here, man. I don't see your comments often. Maybe you're one that lurks in the shadows. We have many of those viewers. Not everybody's a commenter, but we appreciate you, David. Thank you for joining and becoming a member, brother. Thank you very much. John, let's move to that linebacking core, another one that's highly talked about right now. A lot of people getting concerned on Nakobe Dean. I think he was the guy trailing in coverage today in the Dallas Goedert touchdown.
Yeah,
right,
but
man?
in defense, and he's been bad in coverage,
Yeah.
but and on that particular, it looked like a blown coverage. So he was trailing, but
Okay. Yeah,
there
it
was
wasn't. Then he didn't just get beat outright. It looked
no.
like. Yeah.
And by
Okay.
the way, that's just bad defensive scheme. If you got Nakobe Dean going one-on-one against Dallas Goedert, well, you deserve to lose, and you're going to lose. So. Yeah, there were some other issues there, but he hasn't been good in coverage. He hasn't been good in coverage. So, and here's the part I was trying to find. Here's the part I just wanted to circle back to. Jalen, he believed the Eagles were overly reliant on vertical routes and not utilizing short to intermediate throws, particularly over the middle of the field, where A.J. Brown has thrived in his career, which is true. I mean, you throw a slant to the guy, he's catching it. His hope things would change. I mean, I don't see that. I don't see Jalen as the guy who wants to throw it over the middle of the field in the backs. I mean, I think that's somebody trying to protect the quarterback. I'll be honest. I've seen no evidence of that.
We'll see what he does. I don't know. Maybe you're right. I guess we're going to see when the games are being played. We're going to see real quick. Here's a good question from JM. How has Trotter looked in coverage? How's he been?
He made a nice play today on the goal line. They did a little play action with Tanner McKee, and he got the ball quickly out on a rollout to Lou Nichols, one of the backup running backs, and he raced over and tackled him about the 1 yard line, kept him out of the end zone. And Zach Bond was the other linebacker on the field at the time, and he ran over and said, good eyes, referring to his eye discipline. So Trotter's been impressive over the past couple of days, and he's gaining more reps with the second and first team even. And I'm starting to see, if Devin White does not play well, and if Nakobe Dean does not play well, and I think there's a good chance that you could see Trotter on the field by week 6 or week 7.
Boy, that'd be
think
tremendous.
he's got a real chance.
Well, I don't know if it'd be tremendous for the Eagles, but it'd be tremendous for him as a player.
Well, they're not great at linebackers. So,
yeah,
half of the battle is getting an opportunity. Like, you're not getting an opportunity as a young player with AJ and Devontae there. You're not getting an opportunity with Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata. There's going to be opportunity at linebacker. So, he looks very instinctive, and we'll see if he can hold up physically. He's not the best athlete
better than you were projecting, John. I mean, look, we didn't want to get high on him after the draft because it's like, look, the big name, his dad, the 5th rounder. But does he look a little bit better at this point than you were anticipating, or is it more of a case of the linebackers just are so bad that?
Well, I wish I could tell you. Partially is that. I mean, I was thinking about it, like, who have been the most impressive linebackers to me in this camp, making plays? And my answer would be Zach Bond, number 1, Ben Van Sumeren, number 2, and Jeremiah Trotter, number 3.
Wow, no Devin White at all.
Or Nakobe Dean. And those are your 2 best linebackers.
Yeah, but I knew Nakobe Dean wasn't going to be on the list. I thought maybe Devin White would be all right.
He hasn't been bad. It's just there's nothing there.
How are his instincts? That was the knock on him, right? That he's very fast,
it's
very
not
athletic,
great. In fact, I can't believe that Vic has got him at middle linebacker. I'm like, all right. Well, he's the genius. I mean, I'll defer to him. But now as you're going through camp, all of a sudden, for the first time today, Devin White and Zach Bond have started every practice 10 for 10 as the starting linebackers.
Right.
But they've rotated guys. Everybody's gotten first team reps, as I said. In order, Devin's got the most, followed by Zach Bond, followed by Nakobe. Then comes Ben Van Sumeren. Then comes Trot. They've all gotten first team reps. But as far as the number and order from most to least, that's the order. But Trot's coming up. Nakobe's coming up. And for the first time today, it was always Devin. Devin took some second team reps, but they were almost extra reps. In other words, what they do is they go first team, then they go to the second team, then they usually go back to the first team, then they'll go to the third team. Something that maybe it's 1, 2, 3. Usually that type of rotation. Devin had taken all the first team reps and a couple second team reps, but they were extra reps. In other words, he would stay in and get more reps. For the first time today, they had Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond on the first team. And then Devin rotated in with the second team with Trotter. So they are shifting and rotating guys in and out, trying to find which two of these 5
they might go
are
young.
the best options.
They might go young.
Ultimately, I'm still betting on Devin and Nakobe, but it would not surprise me if any of them played.
I'm betting on Devin, but I can't say I'm betting on Nakobe Dean anymore. I can't. I was struggled with it in the offseason, even when you told me, and he's just you're not the only one. He has just not been good in camp, it seems.
Well, it's all pass coverage. He's been really good as a
blitzer. But you just heard the defensive coordinator of the team talk about how important it is.
Well, it is important, but they don't have any good coverage linebackers. So it's like, all right, if it's important, go talk to the GM. You can only play your best players. And ultimately, I think he's going to be, remember, he's been out for a long time. So I think the assumption is, all right, now he's cleared. Now he's back to normal. He's been out for a long time, and he only got completely cleared for that final week in the spring from a medical standpoint. And so he's still shaking off a little bit of rust. He's still the best, most instinctive linebacker they have. He's still the best fitting run with run fits. He's looked like a very good blitzer, and he's struggled in coverage. But I mean, boy, I forget, somebody was putting up Devin White coverage film. I wish if I can remember, I'll give him credit. Ooh, it wasn't good.
Not good, right?
In Tampa Bay. So, I mean, this is what we're talking about. You're trying to find the best of what you have, and unfortunately, this is it. You don't often say a GM problem in Philadelphia. Well, this group is a GM problem. Vic's got to, this is a point where we said, all right, Vic will figure it out. That's what he's trying to do at linebacker.
We'll see what they're going to do at that position, boy. That is just, you listen to Vic and what he wants, and then you look at the players and the team, and then I listen to John McMullen, the great Eagles reporter, break down to me.
Well, Vic just went out to the freaking Hall of Fame to look at one of his ex-players. I mean, he knows what he has.
Yeah, he does. No doubt about it. Here's a super chat from our man, James M. James, thank you, brother. A new member on the channel. He says, hot take. Uh-oh, John. I see hot take in Jalix Hunt. This is going to be a hot take. Jalix Hunt will have a bigger impact than Huff this year. Huff has been non-existent so far, and Hunt has flashed and has immense talent.
I wish. Well, first of all, thank you for supporting the channel, but I can't lie to you. I mean, no, that's not.
Do not lie to him, John.
That's not going to happen. Jalix, very smart guy, by the way, very smart kid. But, Vic talked about it. And he's, Cornell and Houston Baptist ain't the NFL. There's a learning curve. And the Eagles knew that. But boy, Bryce Hupp has played in this league. He's been one of the best pass rusher, granted in limited snaps. I mean, all that is real. But he played 450 snaps or whatever it was. He was one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. I mean, yeah, I'm not worried about Bryce Huff. And again, I think people don't add in the Lane Johnson factor.
Yeah, it's tough to get by
The
Lane.
dude
Yeah.
doesn't give up Jack, to Micah Parsons in real games. Yeah, Bryce is struggling with Lane Johnson. All right. So did Hassan Reddick, as I pointed out. And then he got to go play other right tackles, and everything was fine. I think the same thing is going to happen with Bryce Huff.
We'll see what he does. James M., thank you for the super chat, man. God bless you. I know you're I know you meant good by it, but Johnny Mack had to give you a dose of the truth. I like Jalen Hunt too, James. I don't think he's going to outplay Bryce Huff though. That's a
bad sign for the Eagles, man. I'll tell you that. They paid one guy $17 million.
Here's a good follow-up to that, though. Speaking on Jalen Hunt, was the third-round pick a reach for him? I guess it's too early to tell that, but does he at least look like, a guy worthy of a third-round pick after 10 practices?
Well, yeah, he's got. You see the traits that the Eagles saw.
You do see him, right? I mean, I know he's a developmental player, which I think is high for that type of player anyway, but you got to at least see it, right, if they did it.
Yeah, and that to me is like we've just talked about the linebackers, and there's some medical issues, but I talked about Peyton Wilson for a long time, and he got picked, I don't know, 3-4 spots after Jalen Hunt. And he was picked by Pittsburgh, which is that's me.
Green dot right there, right now.
I've explained that's meaningful to me because Pittsburgh is, for those who don't know, Pittsburgh Medical Center. It's one of the best sports orthopedic places in the country. A lot of people use it from outside the Pittsburgh area. It's nationally known. A lot of guys go there to get surgery, and they cleared them, and that's meaningful to me. Not to say the Eagles might have had a red flag on them. I don't know yet. I'll know eventually. Don't know yet. I'm sure they did, as a matter of fact, because I don't see why they wouldn't have taken him at that stage. I think maybe just from a production standpoint, he was the best linebacker in the draft, but he did have a ton, not just, he had a ton of injury issues. So I get it. But when you look at what they have at linebacker, and that falls to me, the cost benefit at 90, he got picked 98th. I just looked up. So I think Jalix was 94th. To me, the cost benefit at that stage is worth it. But the Eagles went in a different direction. I don't know. And that's, by the way, the pick the Eagles traded for Kenny Pickett also.
We'll see what ends up happening. We're going to continue to talk about this defense. 19 minutes left on the show. Make sure you guys drop a like if you're enjoying the content. We appreciate all you guys being here tonight. Let's go back end now, John. Secondary, safeties, corners. We can start with the safeties. Was CJ Gardner-Johnson, he was not out there again today. What did you see from the safeties at practice today?
Yeah, it was Reed and Avonte Maddox. And then James Bradbury rotated in a little bit. CJ's got a shoulder. I'm told it's not terribly serious. So it's not a big deal from the standpoint of they're going to panic and sign Justin Simmons for $15 million. I'm disappointed, by the way, checking my text messages. I do not believe he's signed yet with the Saints, so my personal nightmare will continue. I was hoping the Saints would get that done today. but yeah, he'll be back soon. And until Sydney gets back, Sydney Brown, which people forget, Sydney's coming back because he's out of. They forget about Cooper DeJean. Never mind Sydney. Yeah, the Eagles are going to have a talented secondary, very raw, very young. But when Cooper is back and Sydney Brown is back, that's going to be a really young, athletic, deep group. So I think that there's down the road, it's going to take a little bit of while, but down the road, it's going to be pretty good for the Eagles overall.
We'll see what ends up happening at the safety position. Any word on Gardner Johnson and where he is with that injury?
Yeah, it's not serious, as I said. So he'll be back. It's day to day. It's not weeks.
They're going to play that safe at this point, right? No need to.
Yeah, he's not playing in Baltimore. I guarantee you that.
No.
No, but he's fine. He's out there watching. He's not, it's one of the if you're seriously injured, they're not going to allow you out there to watch. And he was out there with the bullhorn trying to get Nick's daughter's attention the other day. So he's his usual jovial self. Just got banged up a little bit. And the heat that happens in training camp. They're playing football or a facsimile. So guys are going to get banged up, and he's banged up, but he's fine.
Good stuff there, John. How about the corners today? What did you see from the corners? It's been one of the most talked about positions really all offseason here in Philly after you draft, two guys with your top two picks that are corners. What did you see from the cornerback position today at day 10 of camp?
Isaiah again. So he seems to have distanced himself from Kaylee Ringo at this stage. If it's going to be those two battling, and again, when Cooper DeJean comes back, let's see, August 7th. So it's been 2 weeks, one more week. And if he's not back by then maybe it's time to start panicking a little bit. But that was the original assessment, about 3 weeks. And when he comes back, it's going to be interesting what the Eagles do if they keep playing Quinyon Mitchell in the slot, which I think is a complete waste of time, to be frank, or they move him outside. And I think when they move him outside, I think Isaiah and Keeley are SOL. The people know what that means.
What does that mean? Am I missing something?
Shit out of luck.
Yeah. What do they see when Cooper gets back, John? This is going to be interesting. Are they going to try? Are they going to keep all these guys? You think they'll move somebody? Like, how do you think they'll manage?
No, they're going to keep all of them. I mean, they know what they went through last year from an injury perspective.
Okay, so you think it'll just be Rodgers and
they like Rodgers as a player, and he's going to be a good backup, and he's going to be the kickoff returner, the main kickoff returner. And Ringo's only in his second year, and he's younger, and he's young, and he's got huge upside. And if I bet, next year, when Slay's probably not going to be here, it's probably going to be Mitchell and Ringo and DeJean in the slot. That I think is the working plan. They're going to keep them all. But I do think when Cooper gets back, I think Mitchell's going to move back to the outside, and I think the other guys are going to have to take a seat.
We're going to see what they end up doing when DeJean gets back. I know it's 3 weeks. We're like just over 2 weeks, I think, on him. No word yet, but you continue to see him out there, right? Everything looks good. Hopefully he'll be back in the next week, would you say, or what?
Yeah, he's got about one more week from what was originally, and he's out there every day working with trainers up on the side field. Oren Burks is out there every day.
He's as good as on, isn't he, Oren Burks, at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine this team keeping 6 linebackers, and I don't know. They're not going to cut Trotter, obviously, and I don't think they're going to cut Ben Van Sumeren. So That means you would have to cut Devin White or Zach Bond.
They're not cutting either of those guys. Stop it.
No.
No way. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
The only one I think that's reasonable to think that they would cut, and I don't think they're gonna, based on what you've said, would be Van Sumeren, right? He would be the guy out. I don't think they're gonna, but I think he would be the first to go.
I mean, they could still try to play roster games with Ben if they think they can get him through waivers.
Yeah.
But
Which might work. I mean, I don't know how many people are thinking about him across the league, but I mean, if we're talking about him, you got to think GMs are talking about him a little bit at least.
Well, I mean, from that standpoint, but understand you get hyper focused on
one team. Yep.
On one team, and if you want to be honest, and you want to be optimistic, the Eagles might have the 30th best linebacker room in the NFL. If we're being optimistic, I mean, they're bottom 5. There aren't a lot of teams with worse linebacker situation than the Philadelphia Eagles. So to think that Ben is going to get picked up by somebody else, probably not the case. Yeah. So if they want to play that gamble game, they could probably get him on the practice squad. He's a great special teams player.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to do that with him. I don't.
Well, they could play the Cubby game, as they call it, and elevate him for 3 games. You get 3 elevations on the practice squad. Elevate him to play special teams week 1, week 2, week 3. By that point, somebody will get hurt, and then you put him on the 53. That's what they did with Cubby.
Right.
They might go that route. They might try it. But Orn's got to get back on the field. I mean, but he's proven he can play. I mean, Orn again, 10 practices. I get it. He got hurt in practice 1. So with his case, he's missed all 10 team drills because he started the first practice and got hurt in individual. Or if he did get hurt in team early in team drills, I don't remember at this point, but he got hurt in that first practice. So he's missed the last 9 practices. But it's a veteran player. The only reason I wouldn't slam the door on him, it's a veteran player who they know, who's got plenty of film, who they know can play, and has been a really good special teams player, and has been a really good backup linebacker for a really good defense. So, that carries some weight, at least, when it's everybody else is so unproven. But yeah, and from the case of Ben, he looks good making this team. He wouldn't look good making many other teams.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why you got to bring that context into it.
Any other updates, John, on the injury front and from training camp that are worth noting here?
That was the same guys. No new injuries, and John Ross, who left early, it was heat related, so he was back today. So no concern there. Orrin Burks, as we mentioned, Paris Campbell with the groin, that's kind of an issue. I mentioned CJ with the shoulder. Mekhi Gardner, hamstring, that's really hurting him. Him not being able to practice and play in the preseason games is going to be really affect. So his ceiling is now sort of turning back to the practice squad. And Brandon Smith has a concussion, so he's been out. And he's another back. He's probably the last of the linebackers. So his ceiling was always the practice squad. But those are all the injuries at this point.
Good stuff there. We'll take one more time out. Actually, no, you know what? I'm going to skip the last time out. We got 8 minutes to go. We can get 8 minutes here. John, any closing, things that we might have missed from day 10? What other takeaways did you have today to keep everybody as informed as possible, on what happened today at practice?
Well, I mentioned the kick returners. So the Eagles have been doing this, and we'll see if they do it. They might try to. But they were doing the same thing in the spring, and they'll get mad at me for saying it. I don't know why. They've been using dual returners, and then wherever the ball is kicked, So it started out with Isaiah Rodgers and Kenny Gainwell, and the ball was kicked Rodgers' way, and then Kenny became the lead blocker. So it seems like that's how they're going to handle the new kickoff rules. So that's interesting, and to a certain degree. Then it became the backups were Britton Covey and Will Shipley, and then it was Anaya Smith and John Ross, who didn't take any today, but he has been taking them in the past. So that seems to be where they're going kickoff wise. And that's a little bit more important this year, a little bit more interesting. And Rodgers was a really good kick returner in Indianapolis. So,
yeah, he's got that 4.28 speed.
Yeah, he's really fast, but he's got a little bit of, wiggle to him as well. He's a pretty good runner with the football in his hand. So maybe they're a little bit more effective with kickoff returns because of his presence. And it's going to be more important because you're going to see more kickoffs return this year.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. I'm going to go to a question in the chat here from one of our new members. Shoot, where is it? I thought I just saw it. Madness checks in. John, what's the word on Tyler Hall? Do you think they keep him? What do you think of Tyler Hall, John?
Well, he's an NFL corner. So when we talk about having a weak linebacker room for the Eagles, the opposite is true of the corner room. They're gonna cut guys that belong in the NFL, and Tyler Hall is one of the guys who belong in the NFL. How many can you keep? That's the question. I would be stunned if they don't keep 6. They might keep 7, but you can't keep more than 7. So at some point it becomes a numbers game. If you start thinking about who's going to make the team, well, Slay's going to make the team. Mitchell's going to make the team. DeJean's going to make the team. Rodgers is going to make the team. Ringo's going to make the team. Those are the 5 100%ers. They're going to make the team. And then you have Avonte Maddox. Are you going to list him at safety? Maybe. You get an extra spot there. Josh Jobe, who might be the best special teams player. Tyler Hall's in that conversation as probably going to be the backup nickel. Did I mention Cooper? He was in the one. He should have been in the 100 percenters if I didn't mention him. You see all these names, even Parry Nickerson, who has a history with Vic Fangio and is a veteran player they brought in. Sean Stevens is an undrafted guy who's made some plays in training camp. They got a boatload of cornerbacks, and most of them can play in the NFL. And Tyler's right on that cusp. So it's going to be it's a difficult numbers game for him. And he's not the same special teams player as somebody like Jobe or Ringo. And that really helps them because Jobe is a tremendous special teams player. He's not the best cornerback in the world, but so you start to do that that weight game. How much is Michael Clay gonna bang the table to try to get Josh Jobe back?
Yeah, I mean the other thing that goes into that though is if your backups are
I don't think I mentioned Eli Ricks. They got so many damn corners.
It's crazy how many corners they have. But like the other thing is too, I mean, maybe the special teams guy is more valuable when your backups are.
And Zach, buddy Zach McPherson, I forgot. I don't even talk about Zach. Poor Zach. He's not going to make the team. He's an NFL player. Now he's coming off a torn Achilles. I mean, the numbers game is just daunting for guys like that. Mario Goodrich already got cut. He made the initial 53 last year. He's gone. He didn't make August this year. Amazing depth at corner.
Crazy the switch. Maybe Howie, do this for linebacker next year. Not happening. John,
Well, I don't mind the linebacker depth. I told you that. I think they have a bunch of good backup linebackers.
I don't want a bunch of scrubs though. I want some guys that can play, man. I want some guys that can play.
Well, I don't think you have that, but I think you got a bunch of good backup linebackers.
All right, well, got some starters. How about that, Howie? John, any closing thoughts? 2.5 minutes to go here on the show. Great show tonight. Broke down the article. We talked about day 10 of practice. Any closing thoughts on the show tonight, Johnny Mac? A lot of talk today in Eagle Land.
Yeah, I can't get over the cornerbacks. And by the way, Bradbury's not even a cornerback anymore. It's absurd how many cornerbacks this team has. And obviously Cooper hasn't practiced yet, so people forget about him. Mekhi Gardner was a cornerback before he moved to safety. He moved to safety because they knew he couldn't make it a cornerback. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I don't know how you keep Zach McPherson or maybe even, and then it comes down to probably Ricks versus Job versus Tyler Hall, which was the original question. Like, which one of those do you want to keep? You can probably keep one of them.
Right.
And knowing the Eagles, they love Rick's coverage, but boy, Michael Clay's going to be pissed off if he loses Josh Jobe.
I agree. I think they're going to keep Jobe just because I think they're going to feel confident enough about the two back. I mean, let's just say, for example, Isaiah Rodgers and Keely Ringo are your two guys on the bench. I think they're pretty happy with those guys. If somebody goes down,
they're very.
So then my point is, like, the last person you could prioritize special teams more than if you didn't trust, Rodgers and Ringo. So that's where I think they might prioritize them, but we'll see what they do. It's definitely a tough decision, I guess, for Howie.
Yeah. Generally, they, when they think about corners, they want coverage guys, and that's why Eli's here to begin with. So,
yeah.
I don't know if he's ever going to develop into a good enough run sport player to play significant snaps anyway. So, I'd keep Jobe if that were my decision. And with Tyler, if Avonte can play slot, he can play safety, so you have that versatility. And Tyler's played a little bit of safety as well, but Avonte's done it for the Eagles, so that's a big difference, and they know what type of player he is if he's healthy. And then you gotta, assume he's healthy. So got a long ways to go before week 1. Some guys are probably going to get hurt, and maybe unfortunately, some of these decisions are made for you.
Yep, no doubt about it, John. Good stuff today. Thank you for doing another nightcap edition. Remember, everybody, we're back to our normal time slot. So 12 hours from now, we'll be back up Birds 365 in the morning. I want to thank everybody in the chat tonight. If you guys drop a like on your way out, that would be appreciated. David Kern, thank you for becoming a new member. Bruce Banner, thank you for becoming a new member. Madness, thank you for becoming a member. Sydney Family became a member. And our man, James Carver, dished out 100 members, gifted 100 members. So thank you, James Carver. Can't thank you all enough. You guys have been great all night. Cody K, good night, man. Thank you, guys. Hope everybody has a great night on your way out. If you missed the open of the show, it's premiering on the channel right now. Plenty of other content on the channel to get you through your night. Appreciate it. Johnny Mac, great show today, man. I'll catch you in the morning. All right, brother?
All right. Yeah, I'm going to sleep for 11 hours. What do we got? 12? I'm gonna try to use 11.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I have not been sleeping, but all right, Johnny Mac, I'll talk to you. All right, man.
All right, bud. See you.
All right. See you, everybody. Thank you.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.